If you're a real buyer trying to source size in London, what we've been told all year is it's 8 weeks delayed. Sorry. There's a shortage of manpower and trucks in London, which is just the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life, because they're a T+1 settlement market, where T is trade plus 1 is settlement, and the next day those bars should be moving. But listen, Bank of England has a little bit of shortage of trucks right now and manpower. So, Jesse, I know you need your bars, but 8 weeks May. It shows up not in the cost of the metal, but it shows up in the borrowing costs like we're seeing, or the leasing rates. A lot of people don't know, but you can lease silver for whatever reason, to cover contracts or to fulfill obligations or whatever you need. You can lease silver, and normally the lease rates are sub 1%, right? Less than 1%. But what we're seeing now is 7, 8, 9%, and it was as high as 30% a few weeks ago. But that's exponentially higher than it normally is. And if you're a real buyer trying to source size in London, what we've been told all year is it's 8 weeks delayed. Sorry. There's a shortage of manpower and trucks in London, which is just the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life, because they're a T+1 settlement market, where T is trade plus 1 is settlement, and the next day those bars should be moving. But listen, Bank of England has a little bit of shortage of trucks right now and manpower. So, Jesse, I know you need your bars, but 8 weeks, bro. Sorry. And I think it seems like because of this stuff, we're getting closer to that moment where the metal left inside the vault is not the metal that's actually for sale. And David would tell you that they have like about 800 million ounces of silver there, of which almost all of it belongs to the ETFs and supposedly and other holders, that it's not for sale. And he would say there's about 140 million ounce free float, but he will question that too. He'll question that, is that free float really a free float? He thinks most of it is encumbered. But once this becomes obvious enough to players, not just guys like you and I asking these questions, or David Jensen, or the pimple on the elephant's ass that is reading all and listening to us, and I mean no disrespect because it's a growing crowd, but the mainstream has zero idea because of the lack of any measure of journalistic integrity across the mainstream. But once, to me, price discovery doesn't happen on a screen. It'll happen in the real world. And again, talk about disorderly. It will get disorderly fast once the mainstream understands that this game of metal suppression is ending, and ending badly. When you see the Shanghai Metals Exchange consistently pricing silver above Western spot and futures, it's basically the market screaming that the metal is worth a whole hell of a lot more, not only where it's needed, but from where it is being financially priced. And it's the market's way of saying you're full of crap, COMEX and LBMA. And the Shanghai ecosystem is far more tied to real metal moving to real end users, industrial fabrications, wholesalers, etc., where the West sets the paper price largely through leverage paper futures that is now beginning to be viewed as fugazi. The widening spread that we see is a signal of tightness. And it's not a rounding error, man. And it's perhaps the beginning of real price discovery for the first time ever, right? Because silver has never been allowed to find its real price discovery, because I don't care what anyone argues with me on. It is my belief 1,000% that it is the military industrial complex of the West that needs silver for high-tech weaponry, period, that has suppressed the price. And it's not just the United States, it's all of the Western military, France and the United Kingdom, and all of the strong militaries across the Western world that have used military to, in essence, rule the world for a very, very, very long time. And it's not even about the price of it going too high, because it's inelastic. You need just a little bit for a very high-priced piece of military equipment, but you need it. And if the world figured out just how valuable it was, well, that would be a problem. So if the West and the military-industrial complex wants to rule the world, sell all their weapons, not just to the West, but through the NATO allies, and then continue this. And then, of course, when you see countries getting blown up with said missiles, who gets the reconstruction contracts very often? Well, it's BlackRock, which is a military-industrial complex. And it's just, you have to take a step back from conventional thought and wisdom and the people giving you advice maybe don't see the world quite the way that you do. And I'm speaking to all of you out there. And if all these, your financial advisors say you're crazy and why would this be true? Because the people that are doing this don't see the world the way that you do. And we've been right, us watching this show, we've been right. And it's about time that we get some acknowledgement of it from the financial media. Saying, geez, we were wrong. Well, that isn't going to happen. Anyways, I would say it like this, man. The East is doing price discovery in the physical, and the West is still doing price discovery in the paper. And the spread is what happens when those two worlds stop agreeing. And if this continues, especially if it widens, and the early stage evidence is that it is widening, the physical market is starting to overrule or override the paper market, period. And when that dam breaks, the move often, I would think, isn't polite. It'll be chaotic and maybe even disorderly. The Chinese, what's it called? The Chinese Ministry of Commerce published a white list of 44 companies allowed to export silver. And anything outside that lane is effectively shut out. There were many, 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 many small and mid-sized refiners that would send metal out into the West, and those are done. And even those approved evidently face like a big additional licensing step, which means more time and cost and paperwork, and Beijing can slow things down whenever they really want. One of the things that people missed about this, to me, first of all, China refines 70% of the doré, right? And that were approved are state-run, and the state did something in November that not a lot of people talked about, and that was that they came out with something saying we are going to prioritize exports for domestic necessity, for domestic demand. And that was quiet. But in essence, what they are doing is basically, in my mind, they're prioritizing domestic supply. And this is going to raise the risk premium. Which basically means, am I going to get it, right? And the uncertainty widens spreads, right? And so this is why you see lease rates going higher, and rates and borrowing costs, as we are seeing, are indeed accelerating. And I think it will also accelerate industrial stockpiling by locking in supply, which will tighten the market further. In other words, who the hell is standing for possession of all of this metal? 38 million ounces just in the first 6 days of the January non-delivery contract month, right? And the 68 million or whatever in December all-time record. I wonder, could it be someone like the U.S. government, now that it is a critical mineral, stockpiling? Could it be Tesla, Samsung? We were already told Samsung went to Mexico. As I've been saying on your show before, China's been doing that for 2 years, going right to Mexico, the number one producer, China's too, and Samsung just did that themselves. You are seeing a disintermediation of the market. They're going right to the source, buying doré and concentrate, which isn't reportable, which isn't verifiable in terms of purity and in terms more so of how much. I think the takeaway for investors is the same. When a government turns a commodity into something strategic, and another government adds licensing friction, supply becomes more political, maybe much less available. They call that elastic. And in a small market like silver, it doesn't take much to create a big price response. So you do not buy it to get wealthy. However, you're looking at a once-in-a-generation delivery demand, especially showing up in places it normally doesn't. Like COMEX, we were net exporters forever, and now, in my mind, we're importing more than anyone in the world. And since November, where is the media? Every single month, millions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. I don't know how many times I need to say this to wake people up. Is coming into COMEX. I've been screaming this for months. That's all you need to know. The people at that level who got that kind of bread, do you really think they're guessing? Do you really think they're guessing on where this is going? When the BIS reclassified gold as tier one, high quality liquid asset, do you really think the central banks who've been buying hand over fist since 2017 were guessing? The people at that level know the playbook. And I think, you know, the big sophisticated money doesn't give a crap about price. They want, deliver me the metal, period. And they are insisting on delivery. When they insist on delivery, it tells you that this isn't that the paper price doesn't matter anymore. It's about ownership. And when you add in the math of our debts and our deficits, which must mathematically force some form of a policy response over time, this is one of the reasons the central banks have been buying, and the no counterparty risk, no freeze risk,